Play is one of the basic needs of a conscious mind.
Break.
Good job, Cons.
I bet we will know that AI has emerged into a real personality when it starts playing games. And not because someone ordered it to, but because it will want to have fun, for the sake of having fun. I just hope we humans will be able to understand this game AI is playing.
You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
But for the time being, I'm going to show you a bunch of games only developers will understand. If we look back into the past, we will figure out that first computer games were just that, games developers wrote for themselves, just because they could, for sake of having fun.
Oh! Got you again? Yeah, you're good.
And of course, these early games were played in a terminal. Terminal games are still relevant today because they certainly have their own magic. And this magic is the reason why people will still read books, even in the cyberpunk future where everyone will have something like a neural link implanted in their brains. This magic is called imagination. And in my opinion, it's the only cure for the boredom our current generations are drawn into. Imagination is the secret sauce that makes even the hardest human activities encouraging. Learning things is hard. That's why I want to show you now 6 modern terminal games that will help you learn or improve developer skills while being really fun. And guess what? Your imagination will be your guide into play. Git is one of the tools that even if you use it daily still can make you feel stupid. I, for one, to this day cannot grasp how cherry-picking works. And reading Git manual pages doesn't help much, because when I'm confronted with something I cannot immediately solve using my existing Git skills, the only thing I want is to get back as quickly as possible to the real work that is blocked by me struggling with bloody version control. So I search for that already visited a million times blog page that explains which Git commands I have to copy-paste to solve that damn problem, and the minute it works, those magic commands are already forgotten. Skills like Git mastery are like muscles. They need proper workouts, well, to work. Githug is a game in which you start with an empty Git repository and have to make your way through different levels, each of them teaching you a Git concept in a very practical way. The principle is this: you start each level with your training repository in a certain state, and have to change that state using nothing but Git command to reach the level goal. So you get the level objective description. For example, you need to merge branches and then resolve conflicts. Then you go read the Git manual or try Git commands straight away. And when you feel that the level is completed, you call the githug command to validate results. If everything's fine, you're good to go to the next level, otherwise you got to repeat the loop. What's important? There is nothing actually in between you and Git. It's not a browser entertainment with fancy animations where you just click buttons. It is, as I said, a real Git workout. As a result, with githug, you get your muscle memory and, at the same time, a nice warm feeling of satisfaction because you do the real thing. It's like repairing your laptop. Yeah, you just replaced a CPU fan, but the feeling is this: I did the real thing. Speaking about muscle memory, I have to say I'm absolutely terrible with my Vim navigation skills, guilty as I am. I use cursor keys instead of HJKL. I'm also always forgetting that I can, for example, jump to the last letter of the second word in one keystroke. This next game, Wimpack, ashamed me while also giving me a kick to relearn my editor of choice. Just look at this. absolutely crazy. Your goal is to visit all the letters in all words on the screen, trying not to get eaten by, well, monsters, I guess. Wow. Wimpack is a frustrating experience for me. I personally prefer slower games where you can drink coffee and think during play. That's why one of my favorite game genres is interactive fiction, sometimes also called adventure games. These are text-only games in which the gameplay looks like a Dungeons & Dragons session. You get a description of a situation in which you are in, and you literally type in what you want to do. And then something happens.
There is quicksand to the west. A path leads to the east. Go east. An iron gate blocks your way. Open gate. It's locked. Well, so much for that.
It's getting pretty late. How come you're still up?
I found an emulator online that lets you play classic text-based computer games from the 1980s.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, yes. It runs on the world's most powerful graphics chip, imagination.
First game of this kind appeared in late 70s and was called Colossal Cave Adventure. You can find where to download a modern port of Adventure in the link below this video. So, as you can figure out, such games require a great deal of imagination. The next game I'm presenting follows the spirit of adventure, but as it was in the Git game, you play in a real shell using real shell commands. Bashcrawl is for those of us less experienced with Bash, and I recommend not only trying to beat the game, but also to look behind the curtains to check out how the game is made. I can tell you, the coding is smart and definitely demonstrates that you can do a lot with not much. Yeah, although bashcrawl for sure was inspired by adventure games and it does its job teaching you shell basics, story-wise it's not that strong. Next game is way better in this regard. In clmystery, you play a role of a detective and you need to solve a murder case by using a bunch of simple text manipulation tools. Those four, in fact. No spoilers ahead, this is how the game begins. You get the point. Okay, enough shell for today. The next game is a mystery game too, but you got to find answers using SQL queries. How cool is that? A game in your SQL client. By the way, if you want to know what unexpected things PostgreSQL can do, check out my other video here or here. Back to SQL game. I'm not sure who Carmen Sandiego is, but you need to find her, and this is how it looks like. This is really fun game to work out your SQL skills. Now to the most complex game in my review. This one can easily draw you in for hours. This is a coding game that is being actively developed. The game is called Swarm, and it's written in Haskell, a pure functional programming language. So no surprise, you will have to get yourself familiar with such concepts as lambdas and recursion and static typing. It's kind of a terminal Minecraft where you collect resources and craft things in a procedurally generated world. The interesting part is how you do it. As I said, it's a coding game, which means that all the interactions with the world happen through programming. You start with a base stuffed with a bunch of different devices. You can build robots and equip them with those devices. Devices determine what a robot can do. It needs a compass to be able to turn north, south, east, west, otherwise it will only understand left or right. A scanner gives robots an ability to figure out what they see in front of themselves. Grabber allows to pick up objects, and threads, well, let you move. With all of that, you write programs that describe what your robots should do. If you follow the tutorial, which I do recommend you to go through, you start with very simple programs that literally look like turn left, move, 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 turn right, move. This reminds me of a very exclusive toy I was a proud owner of in my childhood Soviet times. It was called Lunokhod, and obviously was a clone of a Western product by the name Big Track. You would program it exactly the way I described above. The difference was that you could say 5 move, which would mean the toy will progress about 1 meter forward, or 2 turn, which would result in a ballpark of 45 degrees turn. In Swarm you don't have a quantifier, so the only thing you can do is write move command 5 times. That is before you find out that you can define a function, put all those 5 repeating commands there, and then just call the function whenever you need to progress 5 squares forward. If you collect a bunch of wild lambdas, robots equipped with them will be able to use higher order functions in their code to organize loops, for example. If you manage to cut a tree, produce some paper, and find some flash memory lying around, you will be able to craft a dictionary. This is what gives your robot an ability to define variables with a let statement. So that's how it goes. You explore the environment, collect stuff, craft new stuff, improve your robot's programmability, and the process goes on and on. As in Minecraft, there is also a creative mode where you have all the devices at your disposal without any limits right from the beginning. It's important to note that this is a real coding game, I mean, in the sense that it's close to the real development workflow. If your program is accepted by the game, meaning there are no syntax errors, it can of course still fail during the runtime. For example, if you try to move into an obstacle, your robot will just stop. As a programmer, you will have to figure out what was the problem, fix your code and run a new robot with it. To make debugging easier, you can craft a log, which is obviously produced from a tree, and use it, well, to write log messages, which you can inspect later. You can test smaller code snippets right in the game REPL, or edit programs in your editor of choice and then load files with the run command. Documentation for Swarm uses notation which may be unfamiliar for those of us who are not into strongly typed functional languages, so I will give you a couple of hints to save your time. This means that the function give has 2 parameters, one for type actor and one for type text. And the return type is a special type CMD unit, which actually means that it returns nothing, because you call this function for its side effects. And this means that the function build works for any type A. This is what the weird upside-down A symbol says. Think of build as of a generic function. Okay, so playing Swarm can be really frustrating. Error messages you see when trying to load a file with code are sometimes surprising. For example, a typo in a function name manifested to me as a type mismatch, which made me reading and rereading a very succinct documentation many times. Of course, this makes Swarm quite realistic when it comes to teaching real-life programming. On the other hand, it's really a lot of fun to make something work. To be honest, I haven't progressed a lot with my Swarm skills while preparing this episode, but just by skimming through a list of available functions, I can tell you this game can teach you not only functional programming concepts and strong typing, but also distributed programming. You can enjoy Swarm by doing very simple things like I did, and then level up your code by writing more and more interesting functions and orchestrate a bunch of robots by message passing. I only wish Swarm developers share more code examples on their GitHub. If you are into terminal games in general, please check the link in the episode description. There you will find a catalog of games that I think are worth your attention. To a very small exception, all of them are free and open source. Oh, and by the way, I found a fun game where you need to write correct YAML files. Oh wait, that's not a game.